One, I think I would tell them to relax. Enjoy the ride. Just slow down, think it through, is there a smarter way?
Very excited today to have join me on the podcast longtime friend and mentor Jim Coyle of EOS Worldwide, based in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And Jim, you are, it says here, an expert EOS implementer, and that means you've helped a lot of business owners and a lot of leadership teams. So when we say expert, how many days, how many session days do you have now in your career?
And I'm doing a little of this, but I believe I'm around the 1250 mark, 1250 sessions
Fantastic.
over my years, and yeah, it's been a blast. So it's been.
I can tell you, and also you're a EOS Worldwide coach, which means you help coach, just like you did for me. You've coached a lot of EOS implementers as they get started on their journey and continue up the road to mastery. Tell me about how you started that, how you started doing that as a coach to other coaches.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a funny story. So, a friend of mine who was also an implementer became the head coach, and his name was Ed Callahan. And he calls me up and he says, "Listen, Jim, I want to pay you for all the stuff you're already doing." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "So you run the Monday calls for us." Yeah. And he goes, "And you end up coaching other implementers." I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I just want to pay you to do those things." I'm like, "So you're just going to pay me to do stuff I'm already doing?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, this is a pretty good sales pitch."
Yeah, yeah, cool. Okay.
And, yeah, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm missing the downside." And I said, "Yeah, but why me, Ed? Besides the fact I'm already doing it." And he said, and he had a couple of expletives that I'll take out, but he said, "You've messed it up so much, Jim, and somehow you've turned out rather successful at this." He goes, "So I think more people need to know about that, and I think you'd be a good coach because of all the struggles you had going through this." And I was like, "I think that was a compliment." And
It's a
so,
very backhanded compliment, but also one of your graces has always been you've been really transparent about how much you struggled when you were just starting, right? And it was your success has been so much of or a lot of it was just you were too stubborn to quit, right? You knew you were going to be great at it and you weren't going to give up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and the thing is I think that's, it's just a good message for an entrepreneur. So, being an EOS implementer was my 12th business. And, sometimes you just have to keep fighting and you can get to the other side of it. And luckily I got to the other side of it. And I did become a coach and, I've been successful over the years doing it. But it's so much fun to be able to not only help business owners, but then the people that then help business owners. So I'm like the coach of the coaches, right? And so that's been a
Yes,
blast.
that is a blast. All right. So this is your 12th business. What were the first 11? Tell us about those.
Okay. I'm going to struggle to remember all of them. It's funny because my wife and I did the math the other day, and she goes, "I think we're up to 12." And so I'll give you a number of them. And so when I was in high school, I started working at a place called the Bead Shop, and I started making these necklaces. And I made one for my sister, and I made one for me. And then my mom was like, "Ooh, that's really cool." Like, I want one. And then people started to hear about it. And so I literally started to I was like the guy with the jacket. "Hey, you want to see my wares?"
Yeah. My bead necklace?
Yeah, hey, oh, you need a bracelet. I got a bracelet over here. And
Yeah.
so, cheesy enough, I did that. And I did it out of my locker and I sold a bunch of stuff. And then I did that into college. And it was fun because I met a number of girls that way. I would go to like sorority houses and I would show them my boards, which I had with all this like stuff.
There
And
you
my
go.
and my shtick was there'll never be another one of whatever you're wearing. You'll never see another person wearing it that way. There'll
That's
never be another
fantastic.
one. There'll never be two. And my
Yes.
school was definitely a whole bunch of carbon copies of the same person.
Oh, you'll love this. When I was in eighth grade, I sold cinnamon toothpicks. So I would take regular toothpicks, soak them overnight in cinnamon oil concentrate, dry them, and then I'd package them in aluminum foil. 10 cinnamon toothpicks for $1.
Okay, I've never heard of that business.
I think your bead necklace business was better. Anyway, keep going
Well,
though on your
I,
entrepreneur journey. Tell me what
I,
came next.
um, And so then I started a paint contracting business, and where I had three crews, and they would paint, and I was running
Wow.
that
Okay. And
business.
how old were you? How old were you then?
I was a junior in college,
Okay.
um, and then I I'm trying to think of the timing of all of this. It all kind of happened at different times, but then I ended up buying um, three or four units in Colorado, and I was renting those out, and then I was buying and selling them kind of before, so it was real estate investment company, I guess. Um,
Okay.
and then I became a landlord. So I was a landlord here in town for a number of years where I had multiple units. I owned a bar and restaurant in Chicago. That was a hoot. And so owned the bar and restaurant in Chicago for a number of years. And everything you hear about Chicago being corrupt, it's twice as bad as you know. And so I get that. That's a
Truth is stranger than fiction.
Oh, completely, completely, and that's probably for a different podcast.
That's right.
Um, and then I ended up starting Nexus Business Solutions. My business advisory company where I was helping companies,
Yeah.
and then I ended up becoming a EOS implementer. I also, in between that, I was also a coach. So I had another business where I was individual coach for business leaders, and most of them were corporate or bigger than our target market. And so I did that as well. So I don't know what number I'm up to. I think I probably missed a couple,
Okay.
but
That's great.
yeah.
And then what year did you become an implementer? And at that point, how many implementers were there?
Yeah, good question. So 2011 is when I became into the community. I was using EOS as my toolkit for about a year before that. Um, and because, the book was out there and I had used it as a part of my toolkit in what I was doing. But then I came into the community in 2011, and I believe at my boot camp there was eight of us, and then in the room at the QCE, as you'll understand that, but in the room of all the implementers, there was 30 of us, and so of all the implementers
Okay.
that are left, I'm implementer 16. We struggled in the beginning to keep people, and so there's nobody from my boot camp left. Um,
Okay.
and but yeah, so of all the implementers are left, I'm 16. But if you counted me from the people who ended up leaving, I think I'm like 45 or something like that.
Okay. And how many are there now, Jim? Worldwide, there's how many total implementers?
The last number I heard was like 865 or something like that, 865.
All right. We've
But
seen some fun growth.
oh yeah, no,
Okay.
it's
So
crazy.
what with your backstory on being the entrepreneur that you are, and then as many leadership teams as you've helped, what would you tell 20-year-old Jim Coyle? What advice would you give him uh, that would make him a better entrepreneur?
Great question. One, I think I would tell him to relax. Enjoy the ride. I think that I would have told them to double down on working hard, but also then trying to figure out other ways of working smarter. Working hard has never been an issue with me. I have learning disabilities, Andrew, and so I've always had to work harder. Like in school, I worked twice as hard as everybody else to get the same grades, and so I just learned I had to work hard. So I was good at that, but sometimes I wasn't always working smarter. And so I think I would have also told myself, like, sometimes stop and think, and think through kind of what just, I was a guy that was like, go through the wall. If you just walked a couple feet up, you can go around it. So I needed
You're going to get a bigger running head start and smash through it.
yeah, exactly. I will get through this wall, and I've proven through the years I have been able to get through it. I just think there was times I could have gone around. And so I think that would have been my advice: is just slow down, think it through, and is there smarter ways?
So you're on this fantastic summer vacation with your kids, and your son Liam says, "Hey, Dad, my friend Joe, his dad works at Stryker, and my friend Bob, his dad's a police officer in Kalamazoo. What exactly do you do for a living? How do you explain that to your kids?"
That's fun. Yeah, it's funny. So I have done the one that I explained to other business owners, to him, and then so I'll give you that. And then he said, "Okay, boil that down for me," because I did. This exact conversation has happened actually, not the police officer one, but he just said, "Dad, okay, what do you say when people ask you what you do?" And because he's
Yeah,
really intrigued. I think they have an entrepreneur in the making. He's more of an engineer, but he'll be the one that works smart.
there we
Um,
go.
and so at the end of the day, I help business owners get more of what they want from their business. And I do that with a holistic system of a simple set of tools that does three things we call vision, traction, and healthy. Vision, from getting everybody in the organization on the same page so they're all clear where they're going. Traction, making sure they're executing on that plan to be able to get there. And then healthy, helping them just be much more healthy and cohesive so they work better as a team. And so I told Liam that. Liam is my son. And I told him that. And he said, okay, so boil it down. And I just said, at the end of the day, I help to manage all the human energy. There's always human energy that is running through a business, and I help to manage that for organizations so they actually can help to align it through clarity and then helping them to understand how their piece of that is. And so he said, okay, and
That clicked with them.
it did. It started to click, and then he said, well, what would be like the two-word thing, like police officer? I said, business advisor. He said, okay, good.
You work with that, Dad. There we go.
It's funny. I'm like, because the EOS implementer wasn't clicking with him. And so yes, it's funny. We had that exact conversation.
Hey, you've been fortunate um, these many years at US Worldwide. You got to spend a ton of time with Gino Wickman, who's become kind of a sage in our time in terms of business coaching and
hmm
like a fountain, just a fountain of quotes and a fountain of great business advice. Give me two or three of the best pieces of advice that Gino Wickman's given you.
Oh, yeah, it's funny. So him and I have always had, and so we're friends. I should start there. And he has been a mentor for me. And we've always had like this fun banter back and forth. And so I was probably one of the first fact finders, the people that really wanted to know more, much more of the information, how to work. So if you know Colby, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I was probably one of the first, and I was probably one of the loudest, the first and the
Okay.
loudest. Meaning, hey, I paid for this, like I want to know more, right? And so, and Gino's like a two fact finder, a two follow through, and like a nine quick start. And I'm not
Okay.
exactly right on his numbers, but
11. He's an
yeah,
11 quick
oh,
start.
okay. He feels like an 11 to me, and I'm a seven quick start. So, um, we would always have this fun banter. And some of what he did told me is actually what I would have told my 20-year-old self. He's like, Jim, just, get on the bike. Like what you need to do is get on the bike. And he goes, you're trying to figure out how to jump the thing and you haven't even gotten on it yet. Like, how about you just get on it and ride the thing first? And it was really good advice for me because I think that sometimes I like to have it all figured out. And he's like, Jim, sometimes you got to figure it out as you go. Like you're building the train as it's going down the tracks a bit. And I said, okay, all right, that's fair. Because as an entrepreneur, I understood that connections to that.
There we
Definitely I
go.
was
Yeah.
building the
Yeah.
airplane as it was flying, and I did feel like that. But so it was a balance though. So he needed to give me more information than he wanted to, and or he thought I needed, and I needed to let go of some of it. And so there was a good balance there. So that was actually really good advice. Another one that is really rung home to me, and for some reason, it's around the numbers, which is funny coming from him, who is a person that he's a master simplifier. Like, I don't think there's anybody who's ever been able to take a bunch of ideas and simplify it as well as he did. But
Right.
one of the things he
So
said to me
true.
was that you got to find a way, if it's important, you got to find a way to measure it. And so the idea of what you measure gets done and that kind of stuff, which isn't his
Yeah.
quote, but he helped me to see that at the end of the day, the clearest set of expectations is a number. I never thought of it that way. The idea that you can't set clearer expectations than you can if you just give them a number. And I thought, oh my God, that really helps. And so that helped me to really boil it down. And I know, Andrew, that you and I have definitely both loved the scorecard and really helping people to,
Yeah.
connect to their number. And so that was another big one for me that really helped me to help companies take it to take it really to the next level.
That's great. That's great. All right. So you like how many How many companies in your USI career have you walked through the US process?
It's funny. I think I know sessions better than companies, but somebody asked me that question the other day, and Jessica dug in. Jessica's my assistant, and so she would know that number better. But we were up into, and some of this might be pre. A lot of the stuff I was doing before EOS was, uh, not as good. I'd love to say it was, but my ego got bruised, and Gino had built a better mousetrap. But with probably Nexus and all the stuff with EOS, I'm up to about 130, 120 range.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so to the members of the SEPA community that are listening to this podcast, I'm partial to EOS as the driver of business value, of growth acceleration, value acceleration model that EPI is a proponent of. I think EOS is the way to do it. Tell us about companies you've worked with that were kind of like not maybe even actively getting or actively selling, but
Mhm.
realizing that, hey, we're on a runway, right? And in 5 years, if the world is great, we don't own this business anymore. How have you seen business owners really leverage the power of EOS to get ready to sell?
Yeah, it's funny, and I've helped a number of companies at this point do that, and some of them I didn't even know I was helping them do that. I found out after, and but most I did. I think there's only one who it was a surprise to me, and a lot of times, let me say it this way. Let me back up. What I think when business owners start to think that way, and if they have good advisors around them, many times there isn't anything to sell. Really, what they'd be selling is their expertise, and if they're not going to stay in the company, there isn't a lot to sell. And so their businesses aren't worth much. And what people are going to do is they're just going to come in and take their client list and just get out of there because it's not the business that's worthwhile. And that's hard to hear, right? It's these business owners' babies, and we're pretty much calling their baby ugly. Um, and so I'd had to call, I try to do it kindly, but I am definitely a person who's known to be forthright, is the nice
Ryder
way of saying
Blunt, right?
it. Blunt, I guess, is another word for it. And so, luckily, I think that the people that my clients I bring on are that they're open to that. They're open to, I think an advisor that's always telling you what you want to hear is a bad advisor. And so I've helped them
Yes.
understand that what they have isn't something to sell. What you got to do is it's not just lipstick on a pig. You got to actually create something that then actually is sellable. Um, and so one of the things that EOS does is creates a team. So if I'm going to buy a company and I don't have a team of people that know what the heck is moving on, that's going to scare the bejesus out of me, right? I want a company that has a leadership team that is doing really good. Even if I keep the owner on for, with a, some type of consulting clause or something like that, which a lot of, places do, I still want that team to be strong. And so I want a
Yeah.
leadership team. And I've never seen anything, and I was doing this years before US, anything that creates a leadership team better than the US. And what's interesting is we don't talk about this. This isn't something, we don't say we create leadership teams. When I told my son, the vision, traction, healthy, it's the healthy piece that we're really creating a great, healthy team. And
That's
so that's the one thing that I help business owners to understand is that at the end of the day, they're going to buy your leadership team, not you. Um, and so, which is a light bulb moment for them because at some point you're getting out of there. And so the
yes.
leadership team is a big part of that. And then the other parts is so great. Now I have a team, but is there a set way you do business? So is there like this is what we do, and if we when we follow this path, ultimately it does really well. Now that's a set way of how you do quarterly planning. All great organizations on the planet do quarterly planning. They all do.
Yes.
And so you have to have a set way you do quarterly planning. Do you have a set way that you do strategic planning, your 1 year plan, and you're thinking farther out, your 3 year picture, and really how you think through the organization and what the core values are and all that kind of stuff. Do you have a set way you do that, and then bring that information to the team to make sure that it's found all the way top to bottom in the organization? Do you have a way to do that? Do you have a way that you develop your processes so everyone's doing it the right and best way every time? And so if you don't have that, do you really have a business to sell? What you have is a client list. You might have some tools that are cool to buy. I had a client that
Yeah.
was selling, and he had a DeVlig press. And I didn't know what the hell that was, but it was like 2 stories tall, and it was this really cool
Okay.
press. And it's funny that people were looking at buying his company, and I was helping him through that process. And he said, everybody just wants my tools. He goes, but I want them to want my company. And I said, then give me a year, give me a year or two, actually, and then
Yeah.
we can make something. And he said, okay, I can do that. And so with a little talk with his wife to see if she had the patience, we were able to sell his company for about two multiples more after we did this work.
Awesome.
And talking to other implementers, we're hearing anyone who's rolling up companies, we're hearing numbers like they're getting one or two multiples more for US companies because it's just a set system. And so at the
Yeah.
end of the day, if you're going through this and you want your clients to make more money out of their exit, US, I've never seen anything like it. And I used multiple tools, built my own tool. There's nothing like this. And it's crazy how quickly I can do it.
So everything you just said, and then going back to your entrepreneurial journey, how did you realize when you became an implementer? How did you realize, okay, this is my thing, right? Why do you do what you do? What makes you? You're a passionate advocate for EOS. How'd you know you had landed on your thing?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm definitely being an entrepreneur. I'm the guy who needs to do something. And so I'll be honest. I told Gino in the beginning. I said, I'll try this out, and if I think it is what, if I think it's the best tool set for entrepreneurs, I will stay. If I don't, I'm going to find what's best for entrepreneurs. Because, and he asked me why. He said, why? And I said, because I want to have the biggest impact on the planet. I want to make my dent on the universe, as I believe I'm quoting Steve Jobs. Um, and so that's important to me. I want to have an impact. I want to make sure that like it meant something that I was here on the planet. And so impact is my word. And I have never had a bigger impact than with this toolkit. I've never changed lives. I've never have had the ability to really transform what happens for people in their lives, and really personally as much as professionally. And I think, I have some fun, crazy stories about some things that my clients have told me that, some of my favorite kind of compliments and my favorite things that have been
Yeah,
said.
let's hear them.
They,
What are the best two or three? I'm sure you've got more than you can probably count. Give us two or three of the best compliments you've received.
yeah, one of them was that uh, Jim, I could not overstate how much of an impact you've had on my life. Um,
Wow,
and awesome. So
wow.
just that was the compliment. Another one is, I the there's a longer story to this, but a woman was going through some hard times, and we started doing EOS, and she started to cry in the beginning of our session. And she said, "I just want you to know you saved my life." And she was crying. I started to cry because I could feel, the power of what she was saying. And I looked over to her husband, who was also on the team, and he just gave me the nod, like, yeah. And so,
Wow.
I don't know the whole story, but that was one of those times, and I was like, you know what, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
My last
Awesome.
one, which was kind of one of my favorites because of who it was. Obviously, that one is very meaningful to me, but this one was interesting too. So this is a good old boy. He fixes like skid steers and that kind of stuff, and so he's just a great guy. And I was saying, what is right in the beginning of the movie meeting. So we're doing a check in, and what is one thing personal, one thing professional that's awesome, it's happening in your life. And he starts to cry, and he's not that guy. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And he says, Jim, I just want you to know. He's like, we're doing really well, and they were doing really well financially. He said, but that's not what matters to me. He goes, I now have a relationship with my daughters that I never had before. I just was not able to. I just wasn't
Wow.
present. And he goes, and now I'm present. And he said, and it matters, and it's really helping my relationship with my kids. And I can't thank you enough.
Wow, that's a bit of a drop the mic moment, right? You just
Yeah.
call it good for the day and the check-in and
No, seriously, that's what I thought. I was like, okay, now we're done. It's funny. I think I said that. And so those are the things that like, oh man, like that's why I do
yes.
this. That's why I do this work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So I like I advise business owners as they're getting ready to exit and then helping them walk through the exit process. And the stuff that I'm focused on now is helping people think through what are they doing next?
Hmm.
Right? Because when you sell that business, you're not going to die, right? As it turns out, you're going to do something next.
Hmm.
When you talk about helping that, what you do is you help entrepreneurs get more of what they want from their businesses.
Hmm.
Part of what I know EOS delivers is, as you just suggested, turns out that you have a life, right?
Hmm.
Not all of your life is the business. Um, what are what are mistakes you've seen business owners do when they choose either they start down the EOS path and they say, "Oh yeah, we're not going to go the rest of the way." What are the mistakes you see people make in not implementing or in implementing kind of 40%?
Yeah, it's interesting. And so I'm gonna I'm gonna put a pin in that just for a second because I do think one of the things that I was surprised with is that EOS allows people to see that there is more than just their business. It actually opens their eyes up to that. Like, like my friend that I was talking about, my client I was talking about, that it just opened their eyes. They could see broader and bigger, and that, they started to have those relationships different with their family and things. And so I think this allows for that. And it always saddens me when people leave this process early, or really haven't gotten the full value because they've either heard about it, or they've done a session or two and then they move on. And what I find is one of the biggest reasons, Andrew, is they just can't get out of their own way. And so now I'm telling people, when this doesn't work is when owners um, believe they're the only gift to the planet, when they can't get out of their own way, when they can't ultimately hear a coach's voice, they can't ultimately hear that they might be doing it wrong, or maybe there's a better way. And I think that if you can't get out of your own way, and you can't realize that there's times when you do need a bigger team. You don't want to be just the genius with 1,000 helpers. You actually want to have a group of peers that are running an organization. If that's where you want to get to, this is the tool. But if you want to be the genius with 1,000 helpers, and where
That too, yeah.
yeah, you're the arsonist and the firefighter at the same time, because they are creating all these problems, and then they're like, "Oh, look, I put it out." You put the fire out. You literally
Yeah,
lit the fire. So
that's awesome.
those are the people that unfortunately I don't think see this. And it's sad because I think there's so much they could have gotten from it if they could get out of their own way.
Where do you want to be in 10 years? How many more session days do you have in you? Where do you want to be in 10 years? Imagine that, like, I met somebody last night at an ACG event, and he said he and his wife had 6 kids, and their youngest just went away to college, and he's like, we don't know what to do. Like we don't have anybody to drive anywhere. We don't have any school events to go to, right? We're like and so if your daughter's 10, so let's go 12 years forward.
Uh-huh.
You and Jen are empty nesters, right? Where do you want to be?
Yeah, it's interesting because we just had this conversation. So you're hitting all these conversations I just had, and so we have some family members that unfortunately became empty nesters, and they're struggling. And one of those couples, unfortunately, are separating because the only thing keeping them together was the
Yeah.
kid. And then another couple that is struggling. It looks like they're staying together, but they're struggling. Um, and so on the way home from having those conversations, I looked over to Jen and I just said, are you excited about that time period? Is this a time? And she said, I'll be sad that the kids will leave. She goes, but I couldn't be more excited. She's like, we're gonna have a blast.
Yeah.
And we're just gonna do more of what we do. And so I think if you wait till the kids leave to start to have a relationship with your wife, unfortunately, you're gonna find you don't have one. And
Wow.
that won't be a problem for Jen and I. We take a week off, just her and I, every year. We do date nights. We spend good time together where it's just her and I. I believe, and this feels like parenting advice, so probably the wrong podcast, but I believe the kids' earth, like what they found is their foundation, is the relationship between mom and dad. And so
Yes.
that actually what gives them a firm, and you and I have actually talked about this actually now that I think about it. And so that gives them the firm ground in which to walk upon. And so that I feel like we work on and to make sure that we're great. And so I'm looking forward to it. So to answer your question, I'm hoping that I can tell what do I be, my 65-year-old self or something like that, that you've had a big impact, that you're continuing to have an impact, because I probably will still be doing sessions. I've already got it figured my year. About 5 years from now, I'm going to retire. My definition of retire, Andrew, is that I would be able to retire, meaning I could stop if I needed to. But I will continue to do sessions. I think in 5 years, I'll take Fridays off, will be my retirement.
That's
And
right. You'll do less than 100 days, less than 100 session days.
I will
That'll be
just come.
retirement.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I'll do 80, 90, and I won't do Fridays. And then maybe I come off the coaching team. I've told the team that if I'm not really loving it and I'm not having a big impact on the community as a whole, then I will step down as soon as that happens. Um, and right now I feel like that is still going well. But around that 5 year mark is what I'm thinking, and then what's that? Probably 10 years after that, or no, a little more than that. I mean, or less than that, 6 or 7 after that. Then, yeah, Natalie will be in college, and I think Jen and I will just be traveling more and having a great time, and hoping we can look back about all the great things we've done.
that's all. That's a great answer, and it's a great
Thank you.
approach to get there, to get from here today to there. All right. Well, hey, thank you for joining us. And as we wrap up, I just want to communicate to you and for everybody to hear. You've already, I know the massive impact you've already made on the world because you've made it on me personally. And I know how many people that you've helped. I know how many leadership teams you've helped. And so, even if for whatever reason you had to stop next week, you've for sure made a dent on the world. Jim Coyle, awesome guy, awesome friend, awesome mentor. And thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for everything you just said, and thank you for having me.
If you're interested in learning more about what you heard, including learning more about becoming a SecondWave advisor, please use the link in the description to visit the website, and you can receive the first few chapters of the book for free.